In this third video on using Saint Search, let's talk about using the subject filter and subject searching. Let me start with a quick explanation of what subjects are when we're talking about databases. Database managers and librarians typically process so many items that they've had to develop a way to describe items using a limited set of language that tries to organize information sources into meaningful groups to make them easy to access and link together. So for example, when we go into a database or library catalog, instead of having to hunt for each item about sharks, they should all come up together. The fancy name for these sets of languages is controlled vocabularies. We can actually think about them as being like hashtags in social media sites. We tag posts, images, and videos so that we can link them together and make similar posts more easy to find, right? An important difference, though, is that while tags are developed by users, controlled vocabularies are created by database designers and librarians who work for organizations like the Library of Congress, the National Library of Medicine, the Getty Research Institute, and others. Controlled vocabularies can be problematic, and they may have roots in socially problematic language for marginalized groups of people. But many database designers and librarians are working hard to change this. Nevertheless, they are very useful tools for finding good information sources. So back here at the results screen on sharks and environmental effects, one advantage that subject listings offer is that they can help us to focus our information searching by helping us to think about the many ways a topic can be broken up. For example, if we wanted to research sharks, there are actually many different aspects about sharks that we could consider. We could write about sharks' bodies and how they are adapted to their life cycles, or about economic issues having to do with sharks, or shark and human interactions. Subject listings can help us think about a number of different possible ways to look at our topics. Most databases will have some form of subject filter that allows us to narrow to specific aspects of our searches. In Saint Search, we find the subject filter on the left-hand side of the screen near the date filter. We can open it simply by clicking the word. In most databases, the tools will also be on the left-hand side of the screen. When it opens, we find that as we scroll down, we see a lot of terms that are associated with our search. As we scroll over items, we find that there are open boxes to the left and these orangish checkboxes to the right. The open boxes allow us to select specific terms to be included when we use the subject filter, while the other icon allows us to exclude items when we execute the filter. Let's say, for example, that we decide to narrow our search to biodiversity and fishery management. Go ahead and click the open boxes next to them. Let's also say that we do not want to consider sources that include biomedicine. We can go ahead and click the exclude filter here. Click the apply filters. Now again, this exclude button can be very helpful in our research, especially when we know that there are aspects of the topic that we don't want to deal with. So in this case, biomedicine. So doing this gives us a much more focused results list. Now, the nice thing about the subject filter is we could come back through and we could execute this filter again if we wanted to create a much more focused list. Before we go on to look at subject listings on item screens, let's go see the subject filter in ProQuest Central. Again, to help us get used to thinking about Saint Search and other academic databases being similar. So in this database, we find the filter also on the left-hand side near the date filter. It works a little bit differently. When we click the name, we see the subjects that occur most frequently in the search. To see the complete list of subjects, we need to click more, and this dialog box will pop up, and we can scroll down and see all of the subjects. Again, we also have the option to include or exclude certain subjects. Back here in Saint Search, when we click the title of an item, we come to the item screen, And once it all loads, we can come down and find a lengthy list of subjects that are associated with this particular item, not necessarily the search in general, but this particular item. Also notice this phrase here is part of LCSH and PCI subjects. Recall that I said subject lists or controlled vocabularies are created by organizations and database designers. LCSH here stands for Library of Congress Subject Headings, while PCI stands for Primo Central Index. Primo is the brand name of the platform for Saint Search. So here we can see this kind of in action. Okay, so let's go back to ProQuest to find the equivalent. And once we're in, we need to come to the Abstract and Details tab. And here are all the subjects associated with this particular item. One last point. Here we are back in Saint Search looking at a very particular article. Do PSAs take a bite out of Shark Week? We can come down to look at the subjects. Let's say that this idea of television programming really kicks off an idea in us. We could add this subject of television programs to our search. So we've added sharks and environmental effects and television, and we've come to a more specific result screen. The trick is in Saint Search, when we expand our search this way, it resets all of the filters. And so we'd have to come back and reset the date filter and the subject filter to what we had before.